After Spider-Man 2 announcement for PS5, my nerdy ass was waiting for it to release to count the days until it comes out for PC. And was it really worth the wait? Or was my ass tweaking that it's good like Spider-Man after seeing Mary Jane after a plastic surgery, cause instead of a BBL, she got a horrible face reconstruction?
Oh, hell no, man.
Well, if you're wondering if the game is really good, stick with me to find out if flying around the city while leaving shit ton of wet fluids all over the place is really worth it.
Menaces! I'm surrounded by menaces!
He's got big teeth!
So do I.
So let's start with the most important thing in a Spider-Man game, swinging. And despite of reused animations, it's great. The expressions of both Spider-Mans are well done and make it easier to immerse yourself into the world of a web crawler. The sequel also adds heaviness to the character, which makes swinging feel a bit more realistic. Despite of the additional heaviness, the speed of swinging is increased and enriched with a new mechanic of web wings, which don't make swinging completely obsolete. Sure, there are air tunnels which let you transport around the city without moving a finger, but to reach full speed and potential of the system, you still need to combine both mechanics together. To make swinging even better, the developers added an option called Swing Assist. If you put it on 0, the game won't correct your mistakes, and if you shoot your webs too late, you will hit the ground. It adds a layer of skill to swinging and a new thing to master. It's gonna take you a while to learn and adapt, but it makes swinging next to the ground more satisfying. That being said, I kind of understand why some people would prefer to keep it at 10, and why it's at 10 on default. Let's remember that Spider-Man is marketed towards children and men children. Other than that, Peter is now an equal to Miles. Both of them can dash and jump mid-air. I genuinely like this change, since when I wanted to enjoy swinging around New York, I usually went with the Miles Morales game. That being said, I think swinging is great, and if you just look for it in Spider-Man 2, it does it right. But what can you do while swinging around the city? What are the activities around the map? Well, before I start talking about them, let me tell you about a feature that transferred over to the sequel. When you swing around the city after completing a quest, you can listen to 2 podcasts, specifically the Left Wing
More involved. Clearly they're the baddies here. The way that new black suit moves.
and Right Wing podcast.
Another day, another disaster befalls our beautiful city. And guess who's to blame?
The game allows you to turn off one or both of them, but I like to keep both on to see how they clash.
The Spider-Man felt the need.
But let's focus on side activities. The game has 10 of these, one of which are random crimes that spawn around the map. There's not much to say about these, you just find random enemies and beat them up. And in the process you might extinguish a fire or something. How is the fighting, you might ask? It's basically the same as it was in Miles Morales, but with less gadgets. The game basically went from 7 to only 4, and personally I didn't complain, but lack of them for stealth can be quite painful for those who prefer that approach. Anyways, considering the fact that there's more heroes in New York now, you can beat the shit out of criminals with other Spider-Man or his homies. But let's get to the shit you can find around the map. I will briefly go over them and try to talk about them and their rewards without any spoilers, but with one exception. Emily May Foundation quests make Peter help his friend's foundation with research. You will mainly do plants and bees. Genuinely, this questline is quite boring and rewards you with a shitty suit. Hunter blinds are basically Kraven's outposts in which you take out enemies to find intel about hunter bases. Each hunter base contains lore about Kraven, so it's pretty cool to do them.
There's still time for us to be family again. I will not die like any other men.
The reward is 2 suits for both Peter and Miles. I personally didn't like them, but to each their own. The sand crystals focus on recovering Sandman's memories. The reward is basically a cutscene in which you deliver something to a certain someone that is important for Sandman. Genuinely, it wasn't that bad, but could have been better. The Mysteriums are just a bunch of fight challenges. I'm quite disappointed that they didn't include any time races, but nonetheless completing them was fun. After completing each challenge, you get a USB drive with some developer logs about the mysterious invention.
I don't understand why we have to record all this.
Because we're all going to be famous one day.
As a reward, we get a suit. In my opinion, it's okay, but as I said, to each their own. Everyone has a different taste when it comes to suits. Photo ops are a cool way in which the developers showed us what they put into the game. It's basically exploration missions. Prowler stashes are the only ones that I will spoil. These stashes are a way for Uncle Aaron to show how much he hates Miles. He puts his nephew through puzzles and death traps just to show him that he has a plan of his house. Miles, seeing that, gets pissed, thinking that his uncle wants to rob him. But instead of that, he announces that he squashed the beef with his sister-in-law and moves to the apartment next to him.
Miles?
Don't mouse me.
And genuinely, I too would be mad if my uncle would do such thing to me, but not for the same reason as Miles. Back to the other things. Spider bots are basically bots representing Spider-Verse characters, and as a reward for getting them all, you get presented with a cool cutscene. It's a pretty nice side objective that just completes itself. The bots aren't marked on the map, but when you get close to them, you can see a glow. The side objective that is more boring than EMF stations are the fucking Craven Robobirds. You just follow them in a slipstream, and genuinely, this shit got boring pretty quickly. There's too many of them and they lack variety. The most you will get out of them is a second Robobird that you will destroy quickly. The reward is nice since it teases one of the next villains, but genuinely, it was quite fucking painful. Last but not least, you have post-story symbiote nests. They're quite of a challenge and fun to do. You beat up spawning symbiotes while waiting for the timer to run out and destroy their nests. The suit that we get rewarded with is decent, but that's still not all of them. The game contains FNSM, which gives us more side content, specifically side quests. Within the FNSM requests, we can get some nice stories, like the end of the Howard the Pigeon Guy story. Genuinely, it's a beautiful side story, and I really don't want to spoil much, but flying with his pigeons was awesome. There's one where Spider-Man looks for a grandpa who tells us his love story, and genuinely, I enjoyed these chill moments. There's a quest which explains what happened with Yuri after the first game, but in my opinion, the ending to it wasn't quite satisfying. Unfortunately, there's still some mediocre side quests, like the one where we play as Miles' deaf girlfriend, and genuinely playing as a deaf person is an interesting concept, but I don't think deaf people think and express themselves in emojis. I think this shit's quite disrespectful, but what do I know? I'm not a deaf person. There's a storyline to Brooklyn's Vision, which is a school Miles is finishing. It kinda makes sense since these are the people Miles would care about, but the mission about the gay kid seemed kinda forced. What I mean exactly by that is that it should end after helping him with the generator problem, but instead of that we have to watch a couple asking each other out for homecoming, which is quite awkward. But let's get to the main story. But before I start talking about it, let me tell you something about the visual glitches I had to encounter during cutscenes. The game has shit ton of artifacts caused by the film effects and ray tracing. I cannot fathom how incompetent the developers of the PC port were with these things, especially the ray tracing that is mostly handled by the hardware. Why didn't I turn them off, you might ask? Cause the game looked fine while actually playing it. If I pay for the hardware, I will utilize its features. And before I say anything about the story, the characters got plastic surgeries. Peter looks a bit different, Miles got sexier, and MJ looks like a self-fucking insert. That being said, let's get to the story. Also, spoiler warning. So the story is okay. It's not the best, and I wouldn't compare it to something like Red Dead 2, nor would I compare it to the first entry of Insomniac's Spider-Man. Peter at times is too much of a geek.
This is what criminals do. Am I a criminal now?
And the story lacks depth and risks that come with the symbiote invasion. Considering the fact that in the game we can see Fantastic Fours and the Avengers buildings, and the fact that they leave all the work for two Spider-Mans is stupid. Don't get me wrong, the symbiote arc wasn't that bad. Harry being Venom is an interesting concept. Sure, it would make more sense if it would be someone that hates Spider-Man, but I think it's nice that it focuses on the corruption that the symbiote can cause. It also works great when it comes to corrupting Peter. It's really cool to listen to Bully Lowenthal after completing random crimes around the city.
Be thankful any of you can still walk.
Craven was also an interesting character to explore, but him killing most of the villains off-screen was the dumbest decision ever. Also, the villains that didn't die are now back to the society doing average Joe jobs, which is quite goofy. There was still some stuff that felt like the game was trying to squeeze out as much playtime out of me as possible. I'm specifically talking about biking segments, the Coney Island and MJ segments, which are back. and genuinely, they're as unnecessary as the other things. These segments could have been solved by just doing a cutscene instead of making players play through them. I don't understand why these things would be in a Spider-Man game. I don't want to bike or fuck around Coney Island, and I also don't want to play as a Spider-Man's girlfriend. And is this game worth to buy and play? Definitely not in its current state. I played the game on a decent hardware, and the problem was still within the optimization. I would genuinely recommend this game since it's still solid despite of it lacking in the story sector. It's nice to swing around as Spider-Man and cool to see a symbiote invasion on current hardware. That being said, I really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Make sure to join the Discord that is in the description of the video if you want to get notified when I make a new video or have a little bit of a sneak peek on what I'm currently doing. And I'm out.
Now it's time to rest.
I definitely don't want to miss out on 19 inches of Venom, you know.